Good evening and welcome to CYC News for the 22nd of October 2017 and the 12th of Baba 1734 AM. I'm Jenson Button, and in today's headlines, proposed deals shows Hamas rules was a disaster for the Palestinians. Police and protesters descend on University of Florida. Erdogan launches new tirade against US as Turkey relations sour. Hurricane Maria still affecting US 1 month after landfall. Ancient Rome theatre uncovered next to Jerusalem's Western Wall. FDA green lights second gene therapy targeting non-Hodgkin's lymphomas. Jenson Button, ex-F1 champion, hints at switch to Super GT next year. But first to Egypt, where in a brief ceremony held in Cairo last week, Palestinian negotiators signed an agreement meant to bring an end to the bitter feud that has divided Hamas from the main Palestinian leadership. The leaders of Hamas and of the Palestinian Authority hailed the deal as the beginning of a new era, but much remained to be resolved. The new reconciliation agreement aims to reunite the Palestinians who since 2007 have lived in separate territories and under separate adversary governments. It is no secret that Israel and Hamas have had their differences, but Hamas embraces tactics and ideologies that have long put it at loggerheads with other key Arab players, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia and the Palestinian Authority. The final squeeze that brought Hamas to the table this time came courtesy of the Palestinian Authority, which imposed its own sanctions. President Mahmoud Abbas cut the salaries of tens of thousands of Gazanians on the PA payroll and stopped paying Gaza's electricity bill, asking Israel to cut service. Hamas agreed to negotiate and give up control of Gaza to the Palestinian Authority, while Hamas agreed to let the Palestinian Authority run Gaza's civilian administration and a control to the borders with Israel and Egypt starting on December 1st. The sides have not decided what happens with Hamas' large arsenal of rockets or with the estimated 20,000 fighters of its Qassam brigades. More meetings are scheduled for November. To the United States now, where the University of Florida in Gainesville braced for a day of protests last Thursday, when white supremacist Richard Spencer arrives on campus to deliver a speech on his racist views. The event was Spencer's first planned visit to a college campus since he and others participated in the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in August. Last Monday, Florida Governor Rick Scott declared a state of emergency for Alachua County, where the university is located. He also made a provision for the National Guard to be activated if necessary. In the executive order declaring the state of emergency, Scott said, "I find that the threat of a potential emergency is imminent." The event puts the university in the middle of an ongoing debate about what constitutes protected speech and the extent of its limits. Spencer is the president of the National Policy Institute and a leader of the white supremacist movement that advocates for a white awakening and a white state. In a speech last November, Spencer said America was, until this last generation, a white country, designed for ourselves and our prosperity. It is our creation and our inheritance, and it belongs to us. University of Florida President W. Kent Funch announces Spencer's white supremacist platform as apparent in a letter to students, but said the school could not stop him from renting the Phillips Center for the event. He said, "It's not going to feel like a research university for 50,000 students, and the whole purpose of that is to keep people safe." Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has launched a new tirade against the US, criticizing its support for Kurdish fighters in Syria and accusing the country of sheltering a terrorist. In a scathing address to regional governors in Ankara, Erdogan accused the US of sacrificing its years-old relationship with Turkey. The speech appeared to dash hopes for a swift end to the dispute between the two countries, which have been at loggerheads since the arrest of the US consular staff member just over a week ago. Both sides have frozen many visa services in each other's countries, and Erdogan said he would no longer recognize the authority of US. Ambassador John Bass, whom he blames for the breakdown in relations. In the capital, Ankara, Erdogan said, "The decisions of the US Embassy and the statements that followed are neither fair nor truthful." He slammed Washington for giving weapons for free to a terror organization and a reference to the Kurdish YPG, a key US ally in the fight against ISIS in Syria. He also claimed the US had spent 3,500 trucks of weapons into Syria, including heavy arms, saying they were being used by the YPG to encircle us from the south. The US has long supported the YPG and began openly supplying arms to it this year. The YPG is the backbone of the larger coalitions of rebels America is backing to drive ISIS from Syria. In Washington, the State Department responded to the accusation, challenging the Turkish government to provide evidence to support allegations the two employees engaged in terrorism. Puerto Rico now, after Hurricane Maria toppled the bridge connecting him from the rest of the civilization and ripped the roof and walls of his house in the central mountains of Puerto Rico. Ramon Sostre raised a weathered American flag above the wreckage. His message to the world: "I'm alive and I'm American." It worked, if temporarily. Helicopters came, so did a tarp, food and bottled water. 1 month on, and little else has changed. His roof is still missing, as are some walls. He has been sleeping in his kitchen when the wind blows at night. Rain soaks them. Sostre is one of roughly 3 million Puerto Ricans still without power. That's more than 80% of the island's residents. More than a third of households in the US territory, including much of Sostre's community, are without reliable drinking water, roughly 1 million people. These realities are starting to feel less like an emergency and more like the new way of life. The US government says it is still committed to help Puerto Rico. Much of the island appears as if it were hit by a storm yesterday, not 1 month ago. Supplies of clean drinking water are woefully inadequate, and environmental health experts fear a public health emergency could be brewing. The Federal Emergency Management Agency said it had 1,700 personnel deployed in Puerto Rico, the US Virgin Islands, which were also hit by the Hurricane Maria. Yet nearly 2,600 FEMA staff remained deployed to Hurricane Harvey, nearly 2 months after that storm hit the Gulf Coast of mainland United States. FEMA officials since pointed out 20,000 other federal staff and military have been deployed to respond to Hurricane Maria. Israeli archaeologists say they have made a dramatic discovery adjacent to the Western Wall in Jerusalem, after unearthing what they believed could have been a theatre from the time of ancient Rome. Excavations by the Israel Antiquities authorities are currently taking place underneath Wilson's Arch, which stands next to the holy site in the heart of the old city. Archaeologist Joe Uzel said, "What's very exciting about this amazing structure is that we totally didn't expect to find it here. It's a theatre-like structure that held 200 people. The roof building's relative small size compared to other known Roman theatres leads experts to believe it could have been an Odeon, a playhouse used for acoustic performances rather than a large amphitheatre." Another theory being considered is that it was a bouleuterian, a building where the city council could meet. The structure also appeared to be unfinished, as builders did not complete carving some of the sets of stairs. Uzel speculates that the theatre may date from the time of the Bar Kokhba revolt in the 2nd century AD. Archaeologists also say they have uncovered 8 stone courses of the Western Wall that had been buried under 8 meters of earth. Uzel said there is no doubt that the exposure of the courses of the Western Wall and the components of Wilson's Arch are thrilling discoveries that contribute to our understanding of Jerusalem. Site excavator Tahili Lieberman attributes the good condition of the discovery to the lack of rain and sunlight over the past 1,700 years. In health news, the United States Food and Drug Administration has approved a second gene therapy for cancer, the first to target non-Hodgkin lymphomas. The therapy is intended for adult patients with certain types of large B-cell lymphoma after other treatments fail. Non-Hodgkin lymphomas, which accounts for about 4% of all cancers in the US, are malignancies that begin in certain cells of the immune system. An estimated 72,000 new cases are diagnosed each year in America. Diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, which is the most common form of non-Hodgkin lymphoma, represents more 1 in 3 newly diagnosed cases. Currently, up to half of the patients with large B-cell lymphoma relapse or become resistant to the treatments, which may include chemotherapy, stem cell transplants, and immunotherapy. In a statement announcing the approval, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, Commissioner of the FDA, noted how gene therapy has gone from being a promising concept to a practical solution for treating deadly forms of cancer in just several decades, calling the approval a milestone. The new drug is made by California-based company Kite, a subsidiary of drug giant Gilead Sciences that developed chimeric anti-agent receptor and T-cell receptor therapies. These new treatments use a patient's own T-cells to seek and destroy cancer cells. And in sport, motorsport fans in Japan might get to see a lot more of Jenson Button. The 2009 Formula One world champion has revealed there is a good chance of him competing in the Super GT series in 2018. 37-year-old retired from F1 last season after 17 seasons in the sport, although he did not make the one-off appearance at May's Monaco Grand Prix when he stood in for Fernando Alonso, who raced at the Indy 500. But Button says he is now ready to make a full-time return to the track, admitting he loved his time racing in Japan in August. Speaking with CNN World Sport, Button said, "This year has been really good for me because I've been able to reflect on everything and I've really got to love of racing back. I've got that bug." And that's all for CYC News. A reminder that you can watch this news bulletin again throughout the week on YouTube. I'm Justina Twadros from the CYC studios in Sydney, Australia. Have a good night.